Okay, so by my watch, it's almost 5:03. We'll get started here. Welcome to 50green.com. This is our extension of the green building sessions, and we have a special webinar tonight on Earthships, which I'm very excited about. I just recently visited the Greater Earth community in Taos, New Mexico, and stayed there for a couple nights in an Earthship. Lots of interesting ideas, and I'm curious what everyone will think of Earthships. But first, tonight we're going to have a pop quiz, so take out a piece of paper if you have one handy. This is going to take 30 seconds. And you won't even be graded on it. So if you have a clean piece of paper, what I would like you to do, and this is a super quick exercise, in 30 seconds or less, I would like you to draw a picture of the house. Anything goes, and we're going to start timing right now. Da na 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 da da na 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 na. 15 more seconds to go. Okay, and that will wrap it up. So I'm curious, I've done this exercise in a couple of my talks, and my interest is, in a big talk, I like to have everybody pass these up here and collect them and do some statistics on them. But my question is, or my interest is in what kind of a house did you draw? Did you draw something like this? I'd say 95% of people draw this house, or some variation of this house, with the sun, happy sun streaming down on the house, a little tree maybe, and a gable roof. Maybe you've got the smoke popping out, so you've got the solar energy, the fire inside, keep you warm, window and a door, something like that. Anybody draw a Casa Verde style shed roof house, maybe with a bunch of solar panels up top? Anybody draw a flat roof house? And finally, did anybody draw a house that looks like this? Because this is an Earthship. As a custom home builder, the majority of the homes that I've built have always been quote-unquote traditional styles, or in California we see a lot of a quote-unquote Spanish style or craftsman home. In New England it's some type of a cape or salt box or shingled house, or a Victorian type of, we're afraid to ask. I came up with this. There used to be a sex book when I was a young teenager called Everything You Want to Know About Sex But We're Afraid to Ask, and I remember looking at that book in fascination. I don't know where I got it. I'm not sure my parents knew that I had it, or maybe they even gave it to me as sex education, but it was kind of a book that was very on the edge in its time, and so are Earthships. And I think when I visited the Greater Earth community, it's a little bit intimidating. I mean, they are totally, they obviously are, unless you live in Taos, New Mexico, or in a very unique place, you've probably never seen one of these before. And I showed them to I told my wife this is going to be our next house, or at least a modern version of an Earthship that I can permit and build in California. And she was horrified. You know, she just couldn't relate. First of all, she likes straight lines. And as you'll see, the Earthship is anything but straight. So again, I titled it Everything You Wanted to Know But Were Afraid to Ask. It's a little weird, it's a little hippie-ish, it's a little futuristic, whatever you want to call it, but come with me on this journey through the Earthship, and we'll discuss at the end what we can learn. And I'm curious about any of your reactions, your thoughts, your comments about Earthships. Again, as you know, you can reach us at 50green50.com. I'm sorry, 50green50@gmail.com, which I'm sure you all know by now. 50green50@gmail.com. So send in your comments. I'd love to hear from you on this in particular. So this is the north side, the entrance to what's called the Happy Castle. And this is in the greater Earthship community, which is outside Taos. Excuse me. This is in the greater Earthship community, which is outside Taos. This is about a, I think, 500 to 600 acre piece of land that Michael Reynolds bought to develop Earthships, and it's actually a gravel pit. So they've reclaimed the land, and you'll actually see some pictures of houses that are in the gravel pit. So that build an Earthship. So if you're ever in the area, I highly suggest that you go check it out. It's a lot of fun. Stay in one of their Earthships. All right, so a little overview of tonight's talk. We're going to talk a little intro as we've just gone through. Then I'm going to take you on a tour of mostly the greater Earthship community outside of Taos. Then we're going to go through a sort of interactive whiteboard Earthship construction review. I'll show you how these things are actually built. And I think we're going to break about here tonight. And the following webinar, we're going to go in detail through the 6 pillars of Earthship design. And we'll discuss what we can learn, how we can apply it to green buildings that we might build in our areas. And then I'll talk to you about resources, about the books, and more information that you can get. There's lots of information, and it's well worth looking at. Okay, so this Earthship here is called the Phoenix. It's absolutely gorgeous. At least I think it's gorgeous. It's one of the, it's actually for sale. It's on the market for $1.5 million. I believe this is sort of a Grand Dame experiment that Michael Reynolds did. I'm not entirely sure about this. I'm just guessing. But I believe he built this to sell it, or I'm guessing that, as sort of a state-of-the-art example of an Earthship. And not all of them are quite this intricate, but you can see, I've got a copy of the floor plan here. This one here is quite large. I want to say it's 5,000 square feet. It is has sort of a double greenhouse, and you can see sort of this sculptural phoenix here rising out of the desert. I don't think was totally his bag, but it became such a unique piece that he got a lot of PR, and I think that's helped him movement. Okay, so here is the Phoenix. So I'll go back a couple. There's the Phoenix picture that you just saw. And this, again, is right off of Route 64, north of Taos, New Mexico. And look at the floor plan here. So first thing, it may be a little hard to read. He does a lot of Michael Reynolds is definitely both an artist and a engineer. And you've probably heard me talk about the definition of architecture being both. The creative side is very much left brain, right brain. Some architects are definitely more the artist types, and others are more the engineer types. But it's the art and the science of creating a building. Quite a bit of planting, and they could easily jump right off the side of that bridge in grand fashion. But back to the Earthships, and that's all the background we're going to do. It's hard to take a bad picture of these Earthships, at least a finished Earthship. I thought they're spectacularly creative and sort of Gaudi-esque, if you're familiar with the Barcelonan architect who's so famous. If you're not, look him up on Google him, Gaudi in Barcelona, and you'll see some amazing chapels and buildings that he built. He didn't believe in straight lines at all. Everything is curvy and organic and moves around. But you can see here the organic shapes, and some of this is based off the tire walls that they have the nice curves. This obelisk or pinnacle, whatever you want to call it, here actually has these are all bottles that are put in here, and then they plaster up to it. We're going to show you lots more pictures of their bottles. They have some beautiful what he does is take trash, the cans and bottles from the waste of America, and uses them as building parts. Now this is a really cool one. Most of the Earthships that you see in this community have sort of colors of the desert, the reds, the sage greens, there's some brown, some of the clayish colors, which I love. They're all sort of natural hues, also the same types of hues. If you were to tint your concrete, they use a lot of these sort of natural tints because that's what they are, natural tinting colors. And you can see there, you see a lot of dome type structures, and we'll get into their domes. Sometimes these are cisterns, sometimes these are parts of the room. If you looked at the floor plan of this building, it may have a sort of a circular room here attached to a more rectangular shape. But once again, you start to see some of the parts and pieces here. Here's a wind generator. They use a lot of these small scale wind generators, and I know Michael Reynolds has also experimented with some larger generators and had some success with his homemade ones, and I'm not sure that he's totally enthusiastic about these smaller ones, but we'll find out more about these small scale wind generators and do another webinar on it. But again, you can see the southern exposure, all the glazing on the south side for the solar greenhouse. Being the summer, a lot of people have insulating curtains or shades to keep solar gain from entering the house during the hot months. This house actually has two domes. I can see another one back here. Looks like two chimneys. This is their solar hot water system right here. And actually even two separate buildings kind of stuck together, it looks like. This one is kind of a distant shot looking at another part of the, you can see this roadway here comes through the greater Earthship community. And this particular Earthship over here has landscape walls, if you want to call them that, built all the way around sort of their particular space, and these are all tire walls, and you can see their color. They've chosen that very natural brownish clayish color from the soils that are there. Another Earthship here. You can see how well it's tucked into the ground, and another Earthship here. As I said, when I was coming from the north, which is this direction, you can barely see the Earthships. You just see these little chimneys and sun skylights and so forth sticking up above the ground. And this is not a, this is sort of a rolling mesa. As I said, it was a gravel pit, so it's not hospitable by most means area to build your house. You can see, look at the trees here. So these are all grown from the water created and stored from the Earthships, because you can see that's not natural in this environment here. So, well, in these communities, that ain't improved in the usual sense of the word, but it's improved by an Earthship. As you're traveling around, and the visitor center and the education center are sort of works in process. I think They have a lot of interns there, and I think they probably pick projects and build a little bit as you go. But you see all sorts of unfinished products or unfinished projects, and that's probably part of the reason he does the internships, and it's also helps with your education when you go and visit there. But this is a can wall. You can see these are all aluminum cans, and what they do, I think one of Michael Reynolds' earliest ideas after he got out of architecture school was to create a can building, and I believe he got written up in one of the trade magazines. He is sort of this concave aluminum thing, and it becomes quite pretty. But this is in a little tower building, and you can see they obviously put windows in this tower. This is an example of some of the earthen plaster that they use. You can see the little pieces of straw that are built in there. There's a clay and sand natural plaster, which sometimes is painted, sometimes it's left natural, sometimes it's sealed with linseed oil. But again, he's not only using waste products to build these buildings, and lots of glass bottles. And I took tons of shots of these glass bottles in the walls because I thought they're so beautiful. What they do here, you can see this one is actually finished plaster, I believe. They plaster right up to the edge of these bottles, much like they do to the cans, but because the bottles go all the way through the wall, it obviously lets sunlight through, and he's taken the trash and made beautiful stained glass walls. And this is one of the trademarks of his construction. You see this all over the place. But what they do is they take a bottle, all right, a bottle's shaped something, all right, bottle shaped something. How that one's different from the global, but I think they're still developing that one. But the Earthship all starts from the tire. Okay, so I haven't heard exactly how it came to Michael to pick up some tires and start smashing dirt in them, but it did. And one of his fascinating books is The Coming of the Wizards, I believe it is, and he has written and talks about his visions from wizards, and he believes that he has received a lot of information from these wizards about a number of things, and maybe the tires came from them, I don't know, but maybe it came from inspiration of the adobe buildings and the pueblos and New Mexico. But it's a fascinating concept and one that works surprisingly well, and he would say that, you know, he would use something else if there was something better, but he's never found anything better than a tire. So tires do lots of things. Number one, tires are a waste product in society, and a global waste product. You can go anywhere and find tires. I think I did a little research on tires, and I think in the United States we use something like, or we throw away something like 250 million tires a year. Phenomenal number. If you think about it, and we've got 350 million people here. I'm not sure how many cars and trucks, but obviously we go through lots of tires. So what he did is he came up with the idea that you take a tire and you use it as a building block for a wall. And the way he does that is he takes a tire and rams earth into it. We've talked a little bit about rammed earth buildings. There's another technology called rammed bag construction, where they fill bags and stack them up like adobe blocks. We've got adobe blocks, which is an earth type construction, although that's baked, not rammed. But what you do is you literally lay the tires down and you fill the empty cavities with earth. So you know, if this tire here is sitting on ground, what you're going to do is literally fill it up, and you need you don't want to do this of rubber filled earth. So think about that compared to a 2x4 building, or those spindly trailers that we looked at that are built with 2x4 studs. A 2x4 stud is 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So you got that measly 3.5 inches to put your little fiberglass insulation or whatever else it is, and then your cardboard. It's no wonder when the hurricanes come, they blow these things down, compared to this thing, which is built with tires rammed with earth and then filled with earth over the back. All right, so here we go. This is a plan view of an Earthship, and this is the basic model. Again, we're not going to do every single model. I want to just use this as an example. You would have a maximum of, say, 26 feet in depth and 18 feet in width for your basic U shape. So these tires, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 deep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide. Now this isn't totally to scale here, but the first thing you do is you come in, you lay out your tires in your plan, and then you excavate your soil in front of it. Now you take this excavation and a lot of times this is done with a backhoe because this is extremely back-breaking work, but you certainly could do it with a hoe, shovel, and wheelbarrow. You stack up the soil back here, and as you build your tire walls, you continue to take this soil and fill in the tires. Now, if we look at this in a ship, how this vessel rides along in the environment compared to a quote-unquote standard home. Very interesting, and I think there is a lot that we can learn. So tonight we covered the intro on Earthships. We had the tour of the Greater World Earthship community. We had a construction overview of how to build Earthships with rammed tires. And next week, or actually I'm going to do it probably the next couple days here, we're going to discuss in detail the 6 pillars. I'll take you in more in depth into how they put these things together and how these 6 pillars come together to create the Earthships. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we can learn, how you might apply some of these things to your green building, and what your feelings might be about, maybe approaching your green building from a different point of view. I mean, does it have to be that craftsman house? And believe me, I toured architecture all over the globe, and I've been to the Gable house, which is sort of the coup d'etat, the creme de la creme of green and green architecture. Green and green are the actual architects who made famous the California craftsman style, and the Gable house was for the Gamble family, which was Procter & Gamble. So it was sort of like the way Michael Reynolds built a 10,000 square foot Earthship for Dennis Weaver. The green and green architects built this monster house for the Gambles, but it's a fascinating, beautiful, incredible piece of architecture. I love it. I love Victorians. I love Adobe buildings. I love Spanish architecture. I love it all. But if you want to address a building as a green building, as a building that works with the planet, with the environment, approaches the idea of net zero, in other words, not taking any outside energy or creating as much energy as you use, I think there are tons of things we can learn from the Earthship. And I'd like to take the Earthship concept and develop it into some sort of a model that we could build in California and other places where there are a lot of problems building Earthships because of building codes. And finally, we will talk about resources. I'll show you a lot of the books. Michael Reynolds has, 15, 20 books he's written on all kinds of stuff. I'll talk to you a little bit about them. I've bought almost all of them. I've read through a lot of them, scanned all the others. I'll tell you which books you should get if you want to follow up and learn more about his particular program and where you can get them, and some other resources about green building. So for tonight, or whenever you may be watching this webinar, thank you very much for joining us. Otis Bradley signing out. See you next time.